Rumors have been growing once again for a round Apple Watch. Yes, this has happened before, and guess what? It ended up not happening. But for some reason this time it's different, so let's talk about why I don't really think it's gonna happen, and also, yes, I'm very sorry for killing every rumor that comes out now. So watches have for a long time been round because of the gears inside of them, and a lot of people have gotten used to that tradition, that if you're wearing something that tells the time, it's gonna be round, so why shouldn't a smartwatch emulate that? Wear OS seems to really think that's the way to go because it seems like a lot of Android Wear or Samsung Gear watches. Did I say Android Wear again? That's just so much easier. You guys know what I mean when I say that. Anyway, basically everyone else goes forward with the round watch idea, but you may notice sales for those aren't as good. The Apple Watch is still the most popular smartwatch, and it's doing it with a rectangle. I think there's a very deliberate and reasonable cause for Apple to keep using the rectangle, and there's a reason why your Apple Watch is in the shape that it is, and I really don't think Apple's gonna change that. It all has to do with customization and primarily text reading. Your iMac, your iPhone, your iPad, they're all squares for a reason. It's the best for displaying text in a left to right fashion, so you can get the most amount of text on one screen, reading from left to right and scrolling down. It makes things easier. Now, the issues you may run into when developing a round operating system is that now at the top you can't fit the same amount of words as you can in the middle. So the middle of the screen you can fit a full sentence, but at the top you can really only fit one word, and at the bottom once again you can only fit one word. So as you're scrolling, this means that Wear OS has to kind of compensate for it and have text menus kind of scroll in a circular motion like this, and have the text get big in the middle and small on the top and bottom, because we read everything left to right. We don't read things circularly. Now perhaps in certain animations, like when your activity rings are being shown or closed, or when you're looking at your watch face, I can understand the appeal. Round watches are very natural for a lot of people, and believe it or not, I've actually read comments of people saying that I will not buy an Apple Watch because it's not round. They exist, they're out there. And while I understand where they're coming from because they're used to watches looking that way, I don't think it makes sense when you're looking at it from the smartwatch perspective, because the smart part of this watch is the fact that it can deliver text to you, can notify you when you need to stand up, can notify you when to take a breather, and all of these things involve displaying text on the screen. Not very much at a time, but I think Apple really likes that you can read these texts from top to bottom and you can get the most amount of text on the screen at a single time. If they started developing a round Apple Watch, they would have to get kind of weird with how they do it. Either the text would have to be very small and much harder to read so that it could all fit in that circular screen, or they would have to make certain parts of the text bigger in the middle and then smaller in the top and bottom, as I said, which I think would complicate the whole UI, because already we have things like time to stand, or people texted me, or your rings are doing really well, you can still do it, or time to take a breather. All of these things involve words that pop up that, again, they're not paragraphs and paragraphs of things, but I think too many people may get a giant paragraph texted to them and they see it on their Apple Watch and they use that digital crown. They scroll through the text and they say, oh, they're telling me this, they're telling me this. And if it was round, it would be much harder to scroll through that without Apple having to drastically change the UI and make it look very different from what it does on your iPhone, which is just straight up and down paragraphs. Whereas on the watch, all of a sudden it would be all magnified and reflective, or it would be curved and you'd be looking through messages like this. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that it's impossible to create a round watch's good UI, but I think it puts too much complexity on top of the UI, and Apple's really not about making things too complicated with something that you wear on your wrist. I think Apple's content with this square screen because you can display a circular watch face on a square resolution. There are plenty of Apple Watch faces that are round, and if you have the 42mm, you can still read them just fine. But also, if you want the option of having a time lapse, or if you want the option of having a more modular watch face, having that rectangle gives you that option. If they move to having a round display, now having a square watch face, that's no longer a choice. This is kind of an argument of a circle can fit inside a square, but it's rather difficult to get a square to fit inside a circle, because then we would just have a bunch of blank space around our watch face if Apple went forward with the circular one. So keep in mind, while I'm seeing all these rumors and leaks that Apple has patented a circular Apple Watch, these aren't new. We were getting a lot of these reports 9 months ago. In fact, a lot of people were thinking the Series 3 was going to end up being round, and of course it didn't. But I think Apple's experimenting with all kinds of different designs for the Series 4, because we know that this next generation Apple Watch is not really going to be about functionality, because they've kind of nailed it in every regard in what functional features they can add. So we're pretty sure that this year is going to be all about design, making it look cool, cool, making it feel refreshed because the Apple Watch ever since the first gen really hasn't changed that much. So this year is about making it look different, and I'm sure the R&D department is experimenting with all kinds of different looks to the Apple Watch, and I'm sure round one was one of the potential candidates, but I really don't think Apple's gonna go forward with it. If they do, definitely stand corrected, but I'm sure whatever they come up with, they're gonna make the UI a lot cleaner and easier to understand and probably somehow make it work, but I just feel like Apple's not going to burden the watchOS team with all these redesigns, all these UI changes just for the sake of, no, the watch face looks more natural because it's round. That's why I don't think they're gonna do it, but of course, I could be wrong. I mean, like, not even to mention, how would the watch bands work? Would you have to buy your watch bands all over again, or would the round Apple Watch still be able to sport regular Apple Watch band attachments? That would prohibit me from buying it if they do come out with one. I'd be like, nah, I'd be ditching all of my old Apple Watch bands. But anyway, what do you think they're gonna do? Let me know in the comments below. And speaking of Apple Watch bands, we're 1 day away from selecting the winner of our 42mm Milanese loop Apple Watch band. All you have to do is be a donor on Patreon, doesn't matter how much it is. Comment on the post in there telling me what you're most excited for on the Series 4, and you can win a genuine from Apple. It is used, but still very expensive watch band for your 42mm Apple Watch. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.